So I recently got a new capture device that sits with my games consoles and a giant overpriced HDMI hub that pretty much connects everything to the capture device, meaning I don't have to disconnect consoles or use my PC, which is in another room, whenever I want to record game footage. I got this capture device because I wanted to begin recording games that aren't really covered that often here on YouTube, and I wanted all the footage to be my own. I also wanted to have the ability to record straight to a device without needing additional software. Just press the button and record and it does what I need it to do. So to test out this device, I recorded some footage of my NES Classic. I've got loads of additional games on the system. It's very simple to add more stuff onto these little machines, and so I thought I might as well play some WWF games, record the footage and make a video. So here it is. I'll play every NES WWF game here to see if they still hold up today. The first WWF game released on the NES was WWF WrestleMania, releasing in early 1989. This one was developed by Rare, the same guys who brought us classics like Battletoads, Donkey Kong Country and GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64. This one came out just before WrestleMania 5, with development starting after WrestleMania 4, just to give you an idea of what the wrestling climate was like whenever the game came out. The subtitle here, Bigger, Better, Badder, was used for WrestleMania 3 though, so it's possible that development started even before WrestleMania 4. Hard to imagine a game like this though taking over a year to develop. After seeing a scary picture of Hulk Hogan, an incredibly basic title screen, and after entering our name, we can have a look at the roster, and it isn't that bad at all considering the game is from the late 80s. We have the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, Bam Bam Bigelow, the Honky Tonk Man, Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. Now, I know this is somewhat of a cult classic and I know people have fond memories of this game, but take off those rose-tinted glasses for just a moment and look at this. Look at how the wrestlers walk around like if they have some serious back problems. Look at how much weight the $1 Million Man has put on. Yes, this is an extremely early wrestling game on a console that by today's standards isn't capable of jaw-dropping graphics, but you have to admit here that this still looks comically bad. When replaying the game here, I spent the majority of the first match just chasing Ted DiBiase around the ring. He didn't have any real intention of fighting me, he was content just walking around, and when I did get close, I quickly remembered that there isn't much you can do when it comes to actually attacking your opponent. There are slight differences in regards to the attacks between the different superstars. For example, Bam Bam Bigelow can pull off a cartwheel kick, but basically you're limited to a punch, a kick, a running attack, a back attack, and a few wrestlers can go up to the top rope and a few can body slam. That's it, so you really have to use your imagination when playing WWF WrestleMania on the NES. Each wrestler has different stats, surprisingly, but this makes for an incredibly unbalanced game. For example, even though Ted DiBiase ran away during the majority of my match against him, he was easy enough to beat once I got my hands on him. On the flip side, Andre the Giant completely destroyed me within a few minutes, cornering my wrestler and beating the life out of me with no mercy. So it's good that there's a bit of variety with how your opponents fight you and how difficult it may be to take on certain guys, and it's good that your selected wrestler is different from others in terms of stats, but yeah, it does make things unbalanced. Speaking of unbalanced, there's also these little icons that will show up in the ring called energizers. Pick one up and you can get a health boost or a strength boost. Sometimes you see loads of these little icons, sometimes you won't see a single one. And also, each wrestler has their own little icon to pick up. Ted DiBiase has dollar signs, for example. Bam Bam Bigelow has some flames, so yeah, pretty pointless. Again, I know people have fond memories of this one and I know it deserves its place in wrestling video game history, but it's difficult to have fun with WrestleMania on the NES in 2020. Moving on, let's see if the next game, WrestleMania Challenge, fared any better. WrestleMania Challenge was released at the very end of 1990, so there was around a 2-year gap between WrestleMania and WrestleMania Challenge, officially releasing after WrestleMania 6 when the Ultimate Warrior defeated Hulk Hogan in Toronto. This one too was developed by Rare, and apparently the game was originally developed as WWF Survivor Series. This, however, was the last WWF game developed by Rare, moving over to publisher Acclaim's own development studio, Sculptured Software, afterwards. The title screen then features the Ultimate Warrior instead of Hulk Hogan, and this is where I noticed the first problem with my capture card. For whatever reason here, the word challenge has been smudged a little. Not sure why this happened, but yeah, not great. Here's how it should look. Anyway, the roster, we have the Macho King Randy Savage, the Ultimate Warrior, Ravishing Rick Rude, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, the Big Boss Man, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and yourself. So you can play as yourself, bonus points if you actually look like this guy. You can play 1v1 matches, tag team matches, and also 3 versus 3 Survivor Series matches, which is a nice addition. You can also play a tournament mode here, but you get nothing for doing so except a headache. Getting into the game here, you will notice the camera has been changed to an isometric view, and one thing I do like about this is how they added the health bars to the ring apron. There are more actual wrestling moves in this game, but good luck lining yourself up perfectly with your opponent to pull them off. It's like you're wrestling on ice here. Your character glides around the ring, which makes it pretty difficult to get in front of your opponent for a move, and even when you do line yourself up, chances are your opponent will attack you before you even get a chance. It's hard to explain without actually playing the game, but the basic movement of your character makes this way more difficult than what it should be. Also, the CPU runs around in the most erratic and random ways. You can never judge where your opponent is going to be and where your opponent is going to go. Now, to give the game some credit, there are some really nice NES renditions of entrance themes playing in the background. The audience actually looks pretty good, and the wrestlers look way better than what they did in the previous game. Well, all but Hulk Hogan, who has had one of the most serious tanning sessions in the history of tanning. 2-player mode is a lot more fun than 1-player because the CPU is so cheap and annoying, but really, this is where the fun stops. 1 button grapples, 1 button strikes, both buttons together runs, you've got a ground attack, a top rope attack, and that's it. Once you get walloped by your opponent, they will also jump around in the air, and I don't know why, but this made me laugh last night when it happened. I completely forgot about this for whatever reason. Things can only get better, as the saying goes, so let's swiftly move on to WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge, developed by Sculptured Software and released in 1992. This one came out after WrestleMania 8. The big addition to this game is obviously steel cage matches, and to give some credit, the roster here is pretty good. We have Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Jake Roberts, Ted DiBiase, Randy Savage, Bret Hart, Sid Justice, Roddy Piper, IRS, and the Mountie. Good stuff. Getting into the game, they've tried to emulate the 16-bit WWF games at the time. Super WrestleMania was released just before Steel Cage Challenge, so again, credit has to be given for effort, but man, this does not play good at all either. Graphically, they have tried to move away from the cartoony characters in the previous 2 games, with the wrestlers in the ring having better scale, but a lot of character detail has been lost due to this change. Just look at this is supposed to be Ted DiBiase. After beating up my opponent with the limited moves I had, I thought finishers would have made an appearance by now, but no, I spent so much time here trying to pull off a sharpshooter that IRS ended up getting to his feet and giving me a complete kicking. But the steel cage matches should be better, right? After all, it's the selling point of the game, so let me show you the very first steel cage match I had last night. I'm The Undertaker taking on Roddy Piper. While WrestleMania Challenge felt over-responsive due to how your characters move around the ring, WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge has the complete opposite problem. The characters feel too slow and it makes for an incredibly dull experience. And again, I know there will be people out there with fond memories of these games, but so far, I'm having a pretty bad time. I stopped playing this one pretty early, I couldn't stomach it anymore. We only have one left, one chance for redemption, WWF King of the Ring. Let's see if they finally got it right. WWF King of the Ring was developed by Eastridge Technology, a developer I'd never heard of before. After a bit of searching, it turns out they were only credited for 2 games, King of the Ring here and Pong, the Next Level, although they also worked on Paperboy and Gauntlet 2 for the NES, 2 Mindscape titles that Eastridge Technology went uncredited for. King of the Ring was released in November of 1993, the same year that the King of the Ring went on pay-per-view for the very first time. 1993 King of the Ring winner Bret Hart graces the front cover. The menu system will look very familiar to those who played 16-bit WWF LJN games. We have one-on-one matches, tag team matches, tournament mode, which is basically an arcade mode, and the King of the Ring itself. Let's look at the roster and take note of the little character images here. Some of these are pretty funny. We have Bret Hart, Lex Luger, Shawn Michaels, Mr. Perfect, and I don't know why, but this picture here made me laugh. He looks really concerned about something. We also have Razor Ramon here, and this looks like another cartoon character from something I've seen before, but I can't for the life of me remember what it is. We also have Randy Savage, Yokozuna, who is having difficulties fitting into the little image box. Hulk Hogan is here, Undertaker is here, Bam Bam Bigelow looking like a Bobo from Double Dragon, and finally we have you. And hopefully you also have a big question mark on your face in real life. Getting into the game, and yeah, this one I feel is a vast improvement over the other games. There's more move variety here, the characters look big and colourful, the game feels responsive, and you can actually have a little fun here. The walking animations is quite amusing, and details in character models do leave a lot to be desired. The characters look like they were made in Microsoft Paint, but I found this game way more playable than the others, so I feel that this is the one you want to play if you aren't blinded by the nostalgia of the previous games. It isn't perfect, far from it, but it's much more playable than the others. I decided to play a King of the Ring tournament. I selected Shawn Michaels, and just look at the tournament that the CPU set up. The first round featured Razor Ramon vs HBK, The Undertaker vs Bret Hart, Yokozuna vs Mr. Perfect, and Randy Savage vs Hulk Hogan. An insanely good King of the Ring, and even if I got beat here, I wanted to see who would emerge the winner in this star-studded tournament. I won my first match against Razor, Bret Hart managed to beat The Undertaker, Yokozuna made quick work of Mr. Perfect, and due to leaving the WWF and doing what's right for the business brother, Hulk Hogan lost to Macho Man Randy Savage. During my semi-final match with Bret Hart, we both got counted out, so in a cool twist to this greatest King of the Ring tournament of all time, the semi-final between Yokozuna and Randy Savage would now be the final match. You know what happened? The tournament instead got cancelled and I got kicked back to the title screen. I was pretty annoyed here. I wanted to see who won this King of the Ring tournament. So it seems that if you get eliminated from the tournament, you'll never see which CPU character wins in the end. That's a shame. That's everything, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this look back at these classic NES WWF games, a bunch of wrestling games that have not aged well at all. It's no wonder they aren't spoken about really today. This is nostalgic value here for a lot of people, I know, and it's fun to take these trips down memory lane, but sometimes we have to be honest too. These 8-bit wrestling games can be a mix of poor controls, limited moves, and frustrating gameplay. Back then, these would have been maybe salvaged by playing 2-player. The majority of these games suffer from either really dumb or really cheap CPU AI, so having a friend who isn't dumb and isn't cheap goes a long way in making the experiences more fun. But hey, we are under quarantine at the minute, and I'm not risking it just to play WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge on the NES with a friend. Again, I know people will hold these games close to their heart. I also have some favourite old school games that a majority of people don't like, and I also totally understand that taking yourself back to your childhood is worth loads more than the playability of the game in question, and it's great that games like these can do that for people, but if I'm honest, there are much better old school wrestling games that you could be playing. But then again, you also can't put a price on nostalgic value. With that said, you're going to see some more wrestling games come over to the channel now that I have this capture device hooked up to everything. I can directly play off the little arcade machine I have at home. I can capture the latest consoles without having to drag my PS4 or Xbox One around the house. And I've also got a few HDMI converters on the way that will allow me to capture things like the GameCube directly from the hardware itself. These purchases that I've made recently were made possible by the Wrestling Bios channel supporters, so thanks to you guys, I'm able to make more content that I hope you will enjoy. I might even go back and try these NES games again individually and give them a bit more time, so look out for more wrestling game coverage in the future. Thanks for watching.